CEO abandoned his black pregnant wife. She raised triplets in secret and taught him a lesson. Atlanta's city skyline glitters in the dusk, with highways weaving bright trails of light through the heart of Georgia's capital. In this bustling metropolis, a powerful story of love and betrayal begins. Talia and Kendrick met under those very lights years ago, two ambitious souls drawn together by fate. Talia, a compassionate and driven young woman, moved to Atlanta for graduate school and fell in love with the city's energy. Kendrick, a rising entrepreneur who had just launched a tech startup, embodied Atlanta's spirit of hustle and hope. Their paths crossed one warm summer evening at a charity gala downtown, where Talia volunteered and Kendrick was an honored donor. From the moment Kendrick introduced himself with a confident smile, Talia felt a spark. He was charming and magnetic, a self-made man whose success hadn't yet hardened his heart. Kendrick found Talia refreshing. She was intelligent, witty, and genuine in a way that stood out amid the gala's pretenses. They talked long after the event ended, strolling through Centennial Olympic Park beneath the stars and city skyline. By the time they parted that night, a connection had blossomed. Over the next 2 years, their romance grew deep. Dates at Atlanta's cozy soul food bistros, late-night brainstorming sessions for Kendrick's company, and weekend hikes at Stone Mountain bonded them tightly. Talia supported Kendrick's ambitions, often helping refine his business plans and cheering his entrepreneurial spirit. Kendrick in turn encouraged Talia's career. She worked as a financial analyst and dreamed of starting a financial literacy nonprofit someday. They became each other's rock and safe haven amidst Atlanta's fast-paced life. Kendrick proposed on a balmy evening at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens annual light show. Amid glowing orbs and fragrant roses, he knelt and offered Talia an antique diamond ring that had belonged to his grandmother. Tears of joy sparkled in Talia's eyes as she said yes. It was a storybook moment that promised a bright future. Soon after, they were married in a heartfelt ceremony at a historic church in downtown Atlanta, surrounded by friends and family. Everyone could see the love radiating between them that day. As newlyweds, Talia and Kendrick felt unstoppable. Kendrick's startup SkyTech Solutions was gaining traction with investors, and Talia excelled at her firm. They moved into a modern loft in Midtown overlooking the skyline, a symbol of the life they were building. In quiet moments at home, they'd dance in the kitchen to their favorite songs or curl up on the couch, envisioning their future family and the legacy they wanted to create. Atlanta was not just their home, it was the backdrop to their dreams. Little did they know how soon those dreams would be tested in unimaginable ways. Welcome back, dear friends. If you've ever been left to rebuild yourself from nothing, this story will speak to you. It's about pain, redemption, and a mother's strength when love walks away. Tap subscribe, hit like, and stay to the end, because what this woman does next will leave you speechless. The first year of marriage flew by blissfully. Between Kendrick's expanding business commitments and Talia's own work and volunteering, they cherished the time they could carve out together. They often spoke about having children someday, when the time is right. Kendrick would squeeze Talia's hand and smile, saying they had all the time in the world. Talia, however, felt her heart warm at the thought of becoming a mother sooner rather than later. She loved children and secretly hoped to start a family within a couple of years. Late one autumn afternoon, Talia sat in their sunlit bathroom staring at a small white plastic stick with trembling hands. A positive pregnancy test. Her heart pounded with a mix of excitement and anxiety. This baby was unplanned, unexpected, but to her a wonderful surprise. She imagined a little one with Kendrick's brilliant hazel eyes and her smile, and tears brimmed with joy. Yet she also knew Kendrick was laser-focused on his company's next funding round. How would he react? Would he be happy? A tiny seed of worry planted itself in her mind. That evening, Talia decided to share the news over a quiet dinner at home. She cooked Kendrick's favorite meal, creamy Cajun pasta, and nervously rehearsed her announcement in her head. When Kendrick arrived late, looking exhausted but triumphant about securing a new investor, Talia almost lost her nerve. As they sat together at the dining table, city lights twinkling outside their window, she reached for his hand. I have something to tell you, she began softly, her voice unsteady but determined. Kendrick, I'm pregnant. For a moment, Kendrick didn't react, as if he hadn't heard. Then his hand slipped away from hers. Pregnant? He repeated, the word hanging in the air. His eyes widened, and any trace of a smile vanished. Talia hurried on. I know it's sooner than we planned, but I'm happy about it, and I hope you can be too. Her words were gentle, hopeful. She reached into her pocket and unfolded an early ultrasound photo. She'd gotten that afternoon to show him the tiny bean-shaped form. Kendrick barely glanced at it. He pushed his chair back and stood, pacing to the window. How far along are you? He asked, tone clipped. About 6 weeks, Talia replied, trying to steady her voice. She stood as well, feeling a chill of uncertainty. Kendrick ran a hand through his hair. This timing, he muttered. It's just really bad timing, Talia. He turned to face her, conflict in his eyes. The business is at such a critical stage. We're about to close a major deal. A baby. Now. I just wasn't ready for this. Talia felt as if a rug had been pulled from under her. I know it's unexpected, she said, but this is our baby, Kendrick, our flesh and blood. We always said we wanted kids. Eventually. She stepped closer, trying to reach for his hand again, but he shoved his hands into his pockets, avoiding her touch. Eventually, yes, he exhaled, but not now. Not like this. He glanced at the ultrasound photo she still held. Have you thought about what this means for us? For our plans? Maybe we should consider our options. The implication in his words stunned Talia. Our options? She repeated, heart cracking. Are you saying you don't want this baby? Her voice quivered. Kendrick looked away, jaw tight. I'm saying we need to be practical. A pregnancy will change everything. Your career, my focus. Maybe we could wait a bit longer. Try again later when things are more stable. Talia's eyes flared with disbelief. Try again later? You mean end this pregnancy? She could hardly say the words, a wave of nausea and hurt washing over her. Kendrick remained silent, which was answer enough. In that moment, Talia realized he truly hadn't expected or wanted this development. The man who had lovingly spoken of a future family with her was now regarding their first pregnancy as a problem to solve. Tears welled up in Talia's eyes. Kendrick, I can't just undo this. This is our child. He sighed deeply, still not meeting her gaze. It's not that simple for me. I have so much on the line. Talia, I'm just not ready to be a father right now. His words, spoken in a cold, distant tone, pierced Talia's heart. She felt herself shaking, partly from anger, partly from grief. I didn't plan this alone, she whispered. But I won't apologize for our baby. She placed a protective hand on her stomach. I want this child, Kendrick. I understand you're scared, but we can figure it out together. She tried to catch his eye, to find some trace of the loving husband. She knew, but Kendrick's face was a storm of conflicting emotions. After a long pause, Kendrick finally looked at her, his eyes moist, but his expression hardening. I'm sorry, Talia, he said quietly. I can't do this. He turned away, leaving Talia standing there in shock as he retreated to the spare bedroom for the night. The joyful announcement she had imagined had become a nightmare. That night, Talia lay awake alone, one hand on her flat belly, tears soaking her pillow. In the distance, the hum of Atlanta traffic continued as if nothing had changed, but Talia's world had just been thrown off its axis. The days that followed were tense and filled with strained silence. Kendrick avoided discussing the pregnancy, throwing himself into work and coming home long after Talia had gone to bed. Talia, for her part, oscillated between anger and heartbreak. One evening, barely a week after the pregnancy revelation, she found Kendrick in the living room typing furiously on his laptop. Mustering her courage, she broke the silence. We need to talk about this, Kendrick. He didn't look up. There's nothing to talk about if you've already made up your mind, he replied flatly. The dismissiveness in his voice stung. Talia stepped between him and the laptop, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Of course I've made up my mind. I'm keeping our baby," she said, voice trembling but resolute. "I want you to be part of this, but I won't beg you. I just need to know, are you with me or not?" Kendrick's face was drawn with stress. He closed the laptop with a sharp click. "You're asking me to choose between my future and a life I never wanted right now," he said, frustration lacing his tone. "Our child is not an obstacle to your future," Talia shot back, anger flaring. "Plenty of people raise families and have careers. I believed you and I were a team. We promise for better or worse." "Don't you dare lecture me about promises," Kendrick snapped, standing up so abruptly that the coffee table jostled. "You knew how important my work is, how much I've sacrificed, and you promised to be by my side. This pregnancy—" He stopped himself, lowering his voice. "It jeopardizes everything I've built. Investors get skittish when a CEO goes on paternity leave or has divided priorities." His eyes were glossy, a vein in his neck visible as he tried to keep control. Talia couldn't believe what she was hearing. "So that's it? Our baby is just an inconvenience for your investors?" She spat the words, hurt and outrage churning within her. "What about what we've built in our marriage? Or is your company the only thing that matters to you?" Kendrick bristled. "Don't twist this. Of course you matter, but you weren't supposed to do this now." The accusation hung in the air. Talia recoiled as if slapped. "Do this?" Her voice cracked. "You act like I plotted to derail your life. It takes two of us, Kendrick. I never thought you'd react this way. I thought you'd at least try to adapt. But you're acting like I ruined your life by loving you and wanting our child." Tears streamed down her face now, but her voice carried fierce protectiveness. Kendrick grabbed a glass from the table and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, the sudden violence startling them both. "Maybe we were never on the same page," he said coldly. "I made it clear I didn't want kids yet." "You were supposed to be careful." Talia's eyes widened in disbelief. "I was on birth control. Nothing is 100%. She cried. "How dare you blame me for this?" He ran his hands over his face. "I'm not. He stammered. Then his expression hardened again. "This is why I can't do this right now. I have to think about my responsibilities. If you won't consider ending this pregnancy, then I have to make my own choices." A chilling quiet settled between them as his meaning became clear. Talia's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" she whispered. Kendrick's eyes were full of turmoil, but his jaw was set. "I'm saying I'm done, Talia. With this. With us." His voice was flat and final. "I can't stay and watch you go through with this when every instinct in me says it's wrong timing. It'll destroy what I've worked for." Talia's breath caught in her throat. "You're leaving me." Just like that. Her hand protectively cradled her belly. Kendrick averted his gaze, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "I'll make sure you're provided for," he muttered. "I'll have my lawyer arrange something. You won't have to worry financially." The cold, transactional tone of that offer shattered the last piece of Talia's hope. "I don't want your money, Kendrick. I want my husband," she sobbed. "I want the man who vowed to stand by me." Kendrick closed his eyes, pained, but when he opened them, they were distant. "That man is— I'm sorry. I can't be him right now." Without another word, Kendrick brushed past her and walked to their bedroom. Talia followed, panic rising in her chest. She watched as he pulled a suitcase from the closet and began throwing clothes into it haphazardly. "Please," she pleaded, grabbing his arm. "Don't do this. We can get through it. We'll find a way. We can get help. Hire a nanny if we need. Just please, don't leave." Kendrick wrenched his arm free gently but firmly. "It's better this way," he said, not meeting her eyes. "Better now than later, when things get even more complicated." His words were mechanical, as if reciting a script to justify the cruelty. He zipped up the suitcase and pushed past her again. At the front door, he paused, car keys in hand. For a moment, Talia thought he might turn back, that the weight of what he was doing would stop him. She stood a few paces behind, tears blurring her sight, silently begging him to say something, anything, That meant he wasn't truly abandoning her. Kendrick opened the door. "I'll be in touch," he said softly without turning around. And then he walked out into the night, closing the door behind him with a final echoing thud. Talia stood frozen in the silent loft, staring at the closed door. The reality hit like a train. Kendrick was gone. He had chosen to walk away from her and their unborn child. A ragged cry escaped her lips as she collapsed onto the floor. Amid the shards of broken glass from the earlier outburst, Talia curled up and sobbed with an anguish she had never known. In the span of a week, her beautiful life had crumbled. Her husband had become a stranger who valued his ambitions over their family, and she was now alone with a baby, or so she thought, a single baby to care for. That night, as Atlanta's lights flickered outside, Talia felt a darkness close in around her. But deep within her, beneath the layers of hurt, a fierce resolve was igniting. She placed both hands on her belly and whispered through her tears, "I'm here for you, little one. I won't abandon you. I promise." In that moment of heartbreak, the seeds of a new strength took root in Talia's soul, even if she didn't yet realize it. The morning after Kendrick left, Talia woke up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket of loneliness. Her eyes were swollen, head pounding from the night of crying. For a few disorienting seconds, she thought it had all been a terrible dream. But the cold emptiness of the loft and the absence of Kendrick's clothes in the closet confirmed the nightmare was real. With trembling fingers, Talia reached for her phone. She needed someone. She couldn't face this pain alone. She dialed her best friend Nova, who answered on the second ring with a cheery, "Hey girl." That quickly turned to concern when she heard Talia's choked voice. Within half an hour, Nova was at Talia's door with a bag of bagels, a thermos of tea and arms ready to comfort. As soon as Talia saw her friend's familiar face, she burst into tears again. Nova held her tightly on the doorstep, letting her sob until the storm subsided to sniffles. Curled up on the couch together, Talia recounted the heartbreaking events, Kendrick's reaction, the fight, and how he walked out. Nova listened, her expression shifting from shock to anger to compassion. "I can't believe he would do that to you," Nova said softly, handing Talia tissues. "To both of you," she added, glancing at Talia's midsection. "It's unforgivable." Talia wiped her eyes, feeling numb. "What am I going to do, Nova? I'm pregnant, alone. I never imagined I'd be a single mom." Nova's eyes flashed with determination. "First of all, you're not alone. You have me and your family, and we are going to get you through this." She squeezed Talia's hand. "And second, you are one of the strongest people I know. It doesn't feel like it now, but you will get through this. One day at a time." Talia's lower lip trembled. "I'm so scared," she admitted in a small voice. "I was so happy about this baby, and now, what if I can't do it? What if I'm not enough?" Fresh tears threatened to spill. Nova shook her head. "Don't even go there. You are enough, Talia. More than enough. That child," she placed a gentle hand on Talia's stomach, "is lucky to have you as a mother, and I'll be right by your side for whatever you need." For the first time since Kendrick left, Talia felt a tiny spark of hope. "Thank you," she whispered, hugging Nova again. She realized Nova was right. She did have people who cared. Kendrick's abandonment hurt deeply, but it didn't mean she was truly alone in this world. Over the next few days, Talia took leave from work to gather herself. She visited her OB/GYN for a checkup and to ensure stress hadn't affected the pregnancy. Sitting in the clinic waiting room alone among glowing couples was painful, but hearing her baby's heartbeat for the first time gave her a sense of purpose. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The Doppler sound filled the exam room, and Talia cried silently, tears of awe and resolve. This tiny life depended on her now, and she vowed not to let her child down. Back at home, an envelope arrived from a law firm representing Kendrick. With a steeled heart, Talia opened it to find divorce papers and a proposed settlement. Her hand shook as she read the terms, a sum of money offered in exchange for a quick, quiet divorce. It was more than sufficient to cover expenses for a couple of years and implied ongoing monthly support, but it came with a stinging condition, a non-disclosure agreement that essentially meant She was not to discuss Kendrick or make any paternity claims publicly. It was as if he wanted to erase their marriage and child from his life on paper. Talia felt ill reading the cold legal document. It was one thing for Kendrick to leave in the heat of anger, but this calculated offer felt like betrayal layered upon betrayal. Nova found her sitting at the kitchen table, papers spread out, tears dropping onto them. "Is he serious?" Nova fumed after Talia explained. "He's literally trying to pay you off to keep quiet and go away." Talia nodded, throat tight. He really doesn't want us," she whispered, voice breaking. After a night of anguished thought, Talia made a decision. She refused to let Kendrick control the narrative of her life or her child's life with a check. The next morning, with Nova by her side for support, Talia met with a lawyer of her own. She agreed to a divorce. There was no point holding on to someone who had already let go, but declined any hush money beyond what was fair by law. She would not sign an NDA. "If he wants to abandon his family, fine," Talia told her attorney. "But I won't be gagged as part of the bargain." In the end, Kendrick's side didn't contest. Perhaps he was relieved she didn't fight for more. Within a couple of months, the divorce was quietly finalized. Talia reverted to her maiden name on documents and resolved that if Kendrick wanted no part in their child's life, then she would do it alone. With the legal matters settled, Talia turned her focus fully to her pregnancy and future. She moved out of the upscale midtown loft she once shared with Kendrick, finding it too painful to stay. Instead, she found a smaller, cozy apartment in a quieter part of Atlanta, where rent was more affordable. She sorted out finances carefully, while she had accepted some support in the divorce settlement. For the baby's sake, she was determined to remain as independent as possible. She budgeted, saved, and even sold the engagement ring and luxury car Kendrick had given her, using the funds to build a safety net for her child. Talia also leaned on family. Her mother, Althea, who lived in Savannah, drove up for a long weekend once she heard the news. Althea arrived with home-cooked meals, old family baby items, and a fierce maternal protectiveness. When Talia broke down one evening, confessing how betrayed and unworthy she felt, Althea held her and said firmly, "Listen to me, baby. What Kendrick did is on him, not you. A man who runs from responsibility shows his weakness. But you, carrying on, doing right by your babies, that shows your strength." Talia managed a small smile through tears. "Babies," she echoed. "It's just one baby, Mama." Her mother gave her a curious look and gently placed a hand on Talia's still flat belly. "Call it a mother's intuition, but I have a feeling this little one might not be so little," Althea said with a mysterious smile. Talia chuckled softly at that. "I'll find out soon enough. Next ultrasound is in a couple weeks." With her mother and Nova's help, Talia slowly pieced herself back together. She returned to her job and informed her boss of her pregnancy. Though the circumstances were difficult, work became a welcome focus. Her boss, Langston Pierce, a middle-aged man with a kind demeanor, was discreetly supportive. Talia had been one of his brightest analysts before she met Kendrick, and she had stayed on part-time even after marriage to maintain her career. When she privately confided that she'd be a single mother, Langston reassured her that her job would be secure and even arranged a more flexible schedule so she could attend medical appointments. Each day, Talia grew a bit more confident that she could do this. Nights were still hard. She often cried herself to sleep, hugging a pillow, where Kendrick used to be, mourning the loss of the man she loved. But each morning she forced herself up, reminding herself that a new life was counting on her strength. She kept a journal to vent her fears and hopes, writing letters to her unborn child about how much they were already loved. She refused to allow Kendrick's rejection to poison her heart with bitterness. "I have to focus on what I can control," she wrote in one entry, "and that is giving you the best life I can. Little one." Unbeknownst to Talia, that little one was about to bring even more surprises. At her 12-week ultrasound, Nova accompanied her for moral support. The technician cheerily spread gel on Talia's small bump and began the scan. Within seconds, the tech's eyes widened. "Well now, this is something." she murmured with surprise. Talia's stomach flipped with anxiety. "What is it? Is something wrong?" she asked, her voice tight. Nova gripped her hand. The technician broke into a broad smile. "It appears you're not having a baby. You're having 3, she announced. "Triplets. Look here." She pointed to the screen where 3 distinct tiny forms were visible, hearts flickering. Talia's jaw dropped. Nova gasped audibly. Time seemed to freeze as Talia's mind raced to comprehend. "Triplets?" she stuttered. The room swayed, and Nova quickly helped steady her. She thought life couldn't shock her more, until the doctor smiled and said, "You're having 3. Let me ask you, what would you do if you found yourself alone and pregnant with triplets? Comment your answer below, because your words might help someone going through the same battle." A mix of shock and awe washed over Talia. 3 babies. Not 1, but 3. She felt tears of overwhelm spill from her eyes. The technician kindly handed her a tissue and continued, "They each have their own amniotic sac, likely fraternal triplets, all measuring right on track. It's a rare blessing, Mama. Rare indeed. Naturally conceived triplets occur in only about 1 in 7,000 pregnancies." Talia's head was spinning. Nova laughed through teary eyes. "Your mom was right." She somehow knew. Leaving the appointment with ultrasound prints of 3 tiny silhouettes, Talia experienced a renewed wave of emotion. She sat in the car with Nova, staring at the images in disbelief. 3 babies. "How can I possibly do this?" she whispered. The idea of caring for 3 infants alone terrified her. But as she looked at the picture again, a fierce love surged up. "I don't know how," she continued, "but I will. These babies are mine, and I'll give them everything." Nova put an arm around her. "We will figure it out, 1 step at a time. You're not alone, remember." That night, Talia video-called her mom to share the unbelievable news. Althea wasn't entirely surprised. "A mother's intuition, I told you." She crowed, then became serious, reassuring Talia that their whole family would pitch in however needed. Though anxious, Talia felt oddly calm after the initial shock wore off. It was as if knowing she carried 3 lives tripled her determination. "I have a new mission now," she wrote in her journal that night. "To raise these 3 miracles with all the love and strength in me. We may not have their father, but they will have everything else I can give." In her quiet apartment, Talia cradled her growing belly and spoke softly. To her unborn trio, "You are my blessings, my triple blessings. I promise I will be enough for you." Outside, the autumn wind rustled through the trees of her neighborhood. Change was in the air. Talia was shattered but not broken, piece by piece. She was rebuilding herself, stronger than before, fueled by a mother's love and an iron resolve. Carrying 3 babies was physically and emotionally demanding. As Talia's pregnancy progressed into the late 2nd trimester, simple tasks became difficult. She often found herself short of breath and exhausted. By her 3rd trimester, her obstetrician recommended partial bed rest to prevent early labor. Nova and Althea teamed up to help prepare for the babies, turning Talia's spare bedroom into a cheerful nursery with 3 cribs snugly arranged. Stocking diapers and baby clothes generously donated by friends and community members who rallied around the single mother-to-be. Despite swelling feet, an aching back, and nights spent tossing and turning, Talia remained hopeful. Each flutter and kick from her little trio reminded her of the purpose driving her forward. At 31 weeks, much earlier than a full-term pregnancy, Talia woke up before dawn with sharp pains. Her belly felt tight as a drum. Timing the contractions with a racing heart, she realized they were coming faster than expected. "It's too early," she whispered anxiously to Nova over the phone. Nova, who lived nearby, rushed over and helped Talia grab the pre-packed hospital bag. By the time they arrived at Northside Hospital, Talia was in active preterm labor. Northside's staff acted swiftly. They recognized the risks. Triplet pregnancies often resulted in premature births. As nurses prepped Talia, the obstetrician on call explained calmly that they would likely need to perform a C-section to deliver the babies safely. The surgical team assembled in a bright operating room, and Talia, though frightened to be undergoing surgery, weeks earlier than planned, mustered her courage. She clutched Nova's hand tightly until the anesthesiologist's medication made her drowsy. In a flurry of controlled activity, one by one, Talia's babies entered the world. Tiny cries rang out as the medical team lifted each infant for a brief glimpse before whisking them to the neonatal intensive care unit, NICU team waiting nearby. At 4:14 a.m., baby 1, a boy, arrived weighing just 3.5 pounds. A minute later, baby 2, another boy, followed at 3.7 pounds. And finally, at 4:17 a.m., baby 3, a little girl, was born at 3.2 pounds. Though small, all 3 babies breathed on their own with some assistance, a promising sign. Talia fought back tears of relief and anxiety as she caught sight of each wrinkled, wailing face for the first time. "They're so tiny," she whispered in awe. Exhausted and shaking in recovery after the surgery, Talia asked repeatedly about her baby's condition. A kindly neonatologist came to her bedside with an update. "Your babies are doing as well as we could hope for at 31 weeks, he reassured. "They'll need to stay in our NICU until they grow stronger. But they are fighters." Northside Hospital's NICU, one of the most advanced in the state, was prepared for exactly this scenario. Northside delivers more babies than any other hospital in the United States, and its specialized staff knew how to care for premature triplets. When Talia was finally well enough to be wheeled into the NICU later that day, she felt her breath catch at the sight. 3 isolettes were lined up, each containing one of her infants swaddled in a tangle of tubes and wires. The soft beeping of monitors and the hum of incubators filled the air. Tears blurred her vision as she carefully approached each incubator in turn. "Hi, sweet boy," she cooed softly to the first, reaching through the porthole to gently place a fingertip in his miniature palm. His tiny fingers wrapped instinctively around hers, and Talia's heart swelled. "And hello, my little warrior," she whispered to the second boy, who wriggled at the sound of her voice. "And my precious girl," she said to the last isolette, "we're the smallest." Of the trio slept, a pink bow already placed on her hat by a nurse. "Mama's here." Though overwhelmed, Talia felt an intense wave of love. Each baby was a miracle. She decided then and there on their names, wanting them to carry meanings that would empower them in life. The boys she named Omari, meaning flourishing, and Jabari, brave one, and her daughter she named Zuri, beautiful. As she whispered each name to them, it felt right. Omari, Jabari, and Zuri, her 3 tiny blessings. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of Talia's life. Recovering from major surgery while visiting her newborns in the hospital every day became her entire world. She spent hours in the NICU doing kangaroo care, holding each baby skin to skin against her chest, one at a time, while singing lullabies in a soft, trembling voice. The nurses taught her how to feed them drop by drop through feeding tubes and celebrated with her when the babies were strong enough to start taking bottles. It was a roller coaster of progress and setbacks. One week Zuri struggled with a mild infection. Omari had to gain weight before he could breathe without support, and Jabari needed treatment for jaundice. Talia remained a constant, tender presence at their side, often sleeping on a chair by their incubators despite the nurses urging her to rest. Throughout this ordeal, Nova and Althea rotated shifts to support Talia. They brought her home-cooked meals to the hospital, helped her pump breast milk for the triplets, and made sure she herself went to postpartum checkups. Not once did Kendrick show up or call. He remained a ghost of her past. In quiet moments, as she rocked one baby while the other 2 slept, Talia wondered if he ever thought about the family he left behind. Perhaps he was too consumed by work, or perhaps willfully ignorant of the miracle unfolding without him. Either way, thoughts of him now stirred more protectiveness than sorrow in her. "He doesn't get to hurt us anymore," she thought, watching tiny Jabari yawn in her arms. "These babies have enough love from me. We will be enough." After nearly 6 weeks in the NICU, the triplets gradually reached the milestones needed to go home. By late winter, at around 37 weeks corrected age, each baby had grown to over 5 pounds, could maintain their body temperature and drink from a bottle. The day Talia was able to dress them in the preemie outfits she had washed and folded so carefully at home was the day she finally took her children home. The NICU staff gathered to congratulate her, many remarking on how dedicated a mother she had been through the process. "We'll miss you, Supermom," one nurse said, giving Talia a hug as she left. Talia teared up, grateful for their care but eager to start life with her babies outside hospital walls. Bringing the triplets home was both joyous and daunting. The first night, Talia barely slept a wink. Omari and Jabari took turns crying for feedings every 2 hours, while little Zuri whimpered softly and needed extra cuddles. Talia moved like a sleep-deprived dancer between the cribs arranged in her bedroom, feeding one baby, burping another, singing them back to sleep in rotation. At one point around 3 a.m., with 2 babies finally dozing and one fussing in her arms, she caught sight of herself in the mirror, hair messy, eyes tired, shirt stained with milk. She laughed softly at the chaos of it all. "We're really doing this," she murmured to Zuri, who blinked up at her. "It's just us. And we're okay." Those early months tested Talia's limits. Taking care of one newborn is hard, juggling 3 alone was monumental. Yet she adapted and found her rhythm. She learned to feed 2 babies at once with bottles propped just so, while the third waited cradled against her chest. She mastered napping in 15-minute snatches and doing almost everything one-handed. Nova set up a rotating schedule of friends from church and co-workers who dropped off groceries and helped with laundry. Althea moved in temporarily during the immediate post-hospital period, insisting her daughter catch up on sleep while Grandma watched the little ones. It truly took a village, and Talia accepted help gratefully, no longer too proud to lean on others. One quiet afternoon, after her mother had returned home and the visitors tapered off, Talia found herself alone with her 3 napping babies. She finally had a moment to breathe. Looking around the small apartment, the bouncers, the piles of diapers, the family photo her mom had framed of Talia holding all 3 at the hospital, she felt a swell of accomplishment. She had survived the storm. Against the odds, she was raising her triplets, and they were thriving. "We made it this far," she whispered, gently stroking each infant's soft cheek in turn. Omari sighed in his sleep, Jabari made a tiny snore, and Zuri curled her fist around Talia's finger without waking. Talia realized she hadn't thought about Kendrick in days. Her life was so full of responsibility, yes, but also full of love. In that peace, she silently thanked herself for not giving up. The worst nights were behind her for now, and every day these babies grew stronger and more interactive, giving her new smiles and coos that lit up her world. She understood in her bones that while the journey ahead as a single mother of triplets would not be easy, she and her children had already proven their resilience. Together, they would continue to overcome whatever came their way. While Talia was consumed with raising the triplets, Kendrick's life followed a very different trajectory. After walking away from his marriage, he poured himself into SkyTech Solutions with ferocious intensity. The company did thrive. Kendrick secured the major investment he'd been courting and expanded operations nationally. Within 2 years, SkyTech went public, making Kendrick a very wealthy man on paper. He graced magazine covers as a wunderkind CEO and attended endless networking events amid applause for his success. To outside observers, Kendrick had it all: youth, money, influence. But beneath his polished smile, Kendrick felt an undercurrent of restlessness. In private, he struggled with guilt and loneliness. He tried to justify leaving, telling himself Talia was better off without him, and he avoided any news of her to escape the guilt. Yet many nights he lay awake in his empty condo, haunted by the memory of her tears and wondering about the child he had walked away from. He attempted to fill the void with endless work and fleeting flings, but nothing truly eased the regret. In truth, he missed Talia and the life they might have had, even if he couldn't admit it to anyone. One spring day, Kendrick's assistant informed him he was invited as a very important person guest to the annual Atlanta Innovators Conference, a prestigious gathering of business leaders, philanthropists, and rising stars in the community. SkyTech was one of the event's sponsors, so Kendrick's attendance was expected for the gala dinner. He barely scanned the event program, such galas had become routine. If he had, he might have noticed a particular name in the lineup of speakers and honorees that night. When the evening of the conference gala arrived, Kendrick donned his tailored suit and the mask of confidence he wore so well. The banquet hall at the downtown hotel was opulent, filled with hundreds of Atlanta's elite. During cocktail hour, he mingled and exchanged pleasantries, though his mind was elsewhere. Lately, he'd been feeling a nagging urge to change something in his life, though he couldn't pinpoint what. Perhaps tonight's event, recognizing community impact, made him reflect on meaning beyond profit margins. Taking his seat at a table near the stage, Kendrick casually flipped open the program pamphlet between courses. His eyes fell on a headline: Keynote Speaker, Talia Grant, founder of Phoenix Financial Literacy Initiative, mother of 3. His heart nearly stopped. Talia. Her name leapt off the page, hitting him like a bolt of lightning. There was even a small headshot photo. It was undeniably her a bit. Older and with a poised, radiant smile, he recognized instantly. Kendrick's chest tightened. He hadn't seen her face in over 4 years. He read the blurb under her name in disbelief. It described how Talia had founded a non-profit called the Phoenix Initiative to empower single mothers with financial education, inspired by her own journey overcoming hardships as a single mother of young triplets. Triplets. The words stared back at him, sending his mind reeling. A cold sweat broke on his brow. She kept the baby. 3 babies? Kendrick's vision blurred for a moment as reality crashed down. Talia had been pregnant with his children, and he had walked away. Unknowingly, he had fathered 3 kids that he had never even met. Kendrick felt the blood drain from his face, and his hands began to tremble. A colleague at the table asked if he was all right, noting he looked pale. Kendrick managed a tight nod, unable to form words. The noise of the room faded under the roaring in his ears. He quickly excused himself and slipped out to the hallway for air, the program clutched in his hand. His heart pounded wildly. Images flooded his mind. Talia struggling alone through pregnancy, giving birth, raising 3 infants on her own. Shame and guilt crashed over him in waves. He braced himself against a wall, breathing hard. The facts were there in print. There was no denying it now. All this time, Talia had been raising their children, triplets, without him, and she had somehow turned that hardship into something inspiring enough to be speaking at this prestigious event. Kendrick realized with a stab of humility that while he'd been making millions, she had been making a difference, likely fueled by the very situation he had put her in. After a few minutes, the ballroom lights dimmed, signaling the start of the program. Guests trickled to their seats. Kendrick stood at the threshold, conflicted about whether to stay or flee. Part of him wanted to bolt out of sheer panic and self-loathing. But another part of him hung on desperately. He needed to see Talia, to hear her story. He had to know what she'd been through, even if it was painful to face. Steeling himself, Kendrick re-entered quietly and lingered at the back rather than returning to his seat of honor. He found a shadowy spot along a side wall of the ballroom, where he could see the stage without drawing attention. On stage, the evening's host introduced the keynote speaker. "Please welcome Talia Grant." There she was. Talia walked into the spotlight amid warm applause. Kendrick's breath caught. She looked more beautiful than he remembered. Maturity and confidence emanated from her. She wore a graceful dark blue dress and her hair in elegant twists. But what riveted Kendrick most were the 3 small children walking beside her, holding her hands. The sight made his heart lurch painfully. 2 little boys and 1 girl, around 4 years old, stood on stage with Talia, wide-eyed at the audience. They were dressed in their best, the boys in tiny suits, and the girl in a white frock with a blue bow. Even from a distance, Kendrick could see reflections of himself in their features, perhaps in one boy's curious hazel eyes, or the girl's cheekbones. His children. Until this moment, he hadn't allowed himself to think those words, but seeing them made it real. Emotions he didn't know how to name surged within him: wonder, terror, yearning, and deep regret all at once. The crowd murmured appreciatively at the adorable scene, assuming the kids were part of a planned presentation. Talia smiled tenderly at her children and then at the audience. "Good evening," she began. "My name is Talia Grant, and these are my 3 little inspirations, Omari, Jabari, and Zuri." She motioned to each child as she said their names. The audience clapped politely. Some let out soft awes. Kendrick could barely stand as he watched his sons and daughter wave shyly. Talia continued her speech, her voice clear and warm. She spoke about the challenges of single motherhood, how she had once been broken and lost when life took an unexpected turn. Without naming names or blaming, she recounted being left to raise her children alone, and how that crucible forged her resilience. "I learned that strength isn't about having power or wealth," she said. "It's about perseverance and love in the face of adversity." She described founding the Phoenix Financial Literacy Initiative, explaining how she wanted to help other single mothers gain financial stability and confidence to rise from the ashes of their hardships, much as the phoenix symbolizes rebirth. The metaphor was not lost on Kendrick. He felt it cut into him. Talia had risen from the ashes of their shattered marriage, stronger and more vibrant than before, while he had been coasting on hollow achievements. As Talia spoke, she occasionally glanced down at her kids, gently stroking a son, his head or squeezing her daughter's hand, drawing strength from their presence. "My children taught me what real courage is," she said, her voice slightly thick with emotion. "They gave me a reason to push forward on days I wanted to give up. Everything I do now is to build a better world for them and for others in their shoes." The audience was visibly moved. Sniffles and nods were seen around the room. Kendrick's eyes stung with tears he could not hold back. Each word from Talia was a revelation and a reprimand to his soul. She had become exactly the kind of person he once admired, someone making a positive impact, whereas he felt like a fraud in comparison, applauded for a tech empire that suddenly seemed meaningless in that moment. And those children, his children, were living proof of what he had lost, what he had abandoned. When Talia finished her speech, the room erupted in a standing ovation. The triplets, startled at first, laughed and clapped along, not fully understanding the accolades, but happy for their mother. Talia beamed and even bowed comically with her kids, sending ripples of laughter through the crowd. The image was heartwarming to everyone present, everyone except Kendrick, whose heart was aching with remorse and longing. As people settled back down, the program moved on to the next segment. Kendrick realized he couldn't simply slip out now. He had to speak with her. But how? His mind raced. Approaching her with so many people around felt impossible. Yet if he left without trying, he might never have the courage again. He watched as Talia escorted the children off the stage toward a side area, presumably, where a caregiver or friend would mind them during the rest of the event. This was his chance. On unsteady legs, Kendrick navigated around the perimeter of the room toward the stage wing. His heart hammered as he rehearsed what to say, but no words seemed adequate. How do you even begin to apologize for something like this? Before he knew it, he found himself just a few steps behind Talia, who was crouching down to hug her kids and praise them for behaving so well on stage. A woman, Nova, he recognized from long ago, was there too, ready to take the children to the lobby for a treat. Kendrick cleared his throat softly, his mouth dry. "Talia," he said quietly, the single word carrying years of regret. Talia stood up straight and turned. The moment her eyes met Kendrick's, the smile on her face evaporated. She looked as though she had seen a ghost, and in some ways, she had. Kendrick felt a lump in his throat. Up close, he could see her expressions cycling rapidly through shock, confusion, and then a flash of something else, pain or anger, maybe both. Nova's eyes widened as she recognized Kendrick as well, and she protectively drew the children closer to her, watching tensely. Kendrick's voice faltered. "Talia." "Hi," he managed, lamely. 100 thoughts collided in his mind. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. Those beautiful children." But under Talia's stunned, piercing gaze, he couldn't form a coherent sentence. The 4-year-old triplets looked up at the unfamiliar man who had uttered their mother's name. Jabari tugged on his mom's dress, and in the hushed lull, his innocent question pierced the air. "Mama, who's that?" Talia's heart was in her throat as she instinctively placed herself between the children and Kendrick. At Jabari's innocent question, she gently touched his shoulder, voice strained but calm. "It's okay, sweetie. This is just a person Mommy used to know." She shot a glance at Nova, who immediately understood. "Kids, why don't we go find that ice cream cart I saw in the lobby?" Nova interjected brightly. "I bet you 3 earned a treat." Omari and Zuri, sensing the tension, clung to Nova's hands. Jabari looked up at his mother again, uncertain. Talia mustered a reassuring smile for her son. "Go on with Auntie Nova. I'll be right here," she promised, kissing his forehead. Reluctantly, Jabari took Nova's hand. With a last wary look at the unfamiliar man, the little boy joined his siblings, as Nova briskly led them out of earshot. As soon as the children were safely away, Talia turned her full attention to Kendrick. The smile she had forced for her kids vanished, replaced by a tempest of emotion in her eyes. "What are you doing here?" she demanded in a low, tremulous voice. Up close, Kendrick could see tears of anger or hurt brimming in her eyes, even as she tried to maintain a steely composure. He swallowed hard, feeling utterly unworthy to even speak to her. I was invited. I didn't know you would be here," he began softly. "I only realized when I saw the program. I swear Talia held up a hand to stop him, her breath unsteady. "You didn't know," she repeated, voice dripping with bitter irony. "Of course you didn't." She shook her head, a tear finally escaping down her cheek. "You've known nothing about our lives for 5 years, Kendrick. By your choice." Her words cut him deeply. Kendrick's eyes stung. "You're right," he said hoarsely. "I know I'm the last person you expected, or wanted, to see. But now that I'm here, I need to say that I am so sorry, Talia." Talia flinched at his apology, as if the words physically pained her. "Sorry?" she echoed, a slight tremor in her voice. "You think sorry can even begin to cover what you did?" Her restrained volume could not mask the fury in her tone. "You abandoned me," she corrected herself, voice cracking. "You abandoned us when I was pregnant. I begged you to stay, and you walked away without looking back. And now you're sorry." Kendrick's face crumpled. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I regret it every day. I was a coward and a fool. If I could take it back." Talia's eyes flashed. "But you can't, Kendrick. You can't take it back. Do you have any idea what that did to me, to be left like that?" She struggled to keep her composure. Her hands were shaking. "I cried every night for months. I questioned my worth, my judgment, everything. I went through a high-risk pregnancy alone, terrified that any stress could hurt my babies, while also wondering if I was crazy for keeping them when their father didn't want them." Her voice wavered with barely controlled emotion. Kendrick felt tears on his own cheeks now. "Talia, I'm so sorry," he whispered again, helplessly. "I was wrong. I was so wrong." She continued, relentless, years of pent-up hurt spilling out quietly but forcefully. "I nearly died giving birth to them, did you know that?" It wasn't true in the literal sense, but Talia's labor had indeed been perilous enough. "And I had to name them and sign papers alone in the hospital. I would look at their tiny faces in the NICU and break because I couldn't give them a father." Kendrick covered his face with one hand, overcome with shame. "I'm sorry," he kept repeating, voice choked. "I was selfish and blind. I thought I was doing the right thing for my career. I convinced myself it'd be better off." He broke off, realizing how hollow it all sounded now. Talia let out a soft, bitter laugh at that. "Better off? Do you know what would have been better for me, Kendrick? Having the man I loved hold my hand when I was scared. Hearing him say he'd protect and cherish his children. That's what would have been. Better." She wiped her tears roughly. "But you stole that from me. You stole that from Omari, Jabari, and Zuri. They grew up without ever knowing their father's face. They don't even know you exist." Each sentence hit Kendrick like a blow. He stepped closer, desperation in his eyes. "Please, I know I don't have any right, but I want to know them. I want a chance to be in their lives, if you'll allow it." He could hardly believe he was asking, knowing he deserved nothing. "I know I can't make up for the lost time, but I'm still their father." Talia bristled, her posture stiffening protectively. "Their father," she repeated sharply. "A father isn't just biology, Kendrick. A father is the man who's there for the midnight feedings, the scraped knees, the first words and first steps. You have not been their father. You don't get to walk in now, after I did all the hard work raising them, and claim that title." Her voice was cold, but tears kept falling, betraying her inner turmoil. Kendrick bowed his head, absorbing her rebuke. "You're right," he said softly. "I haven't earned it, but can I earn it somehow? Even a little? I'm begging you, Talia. Let me try. Let me meet them." Talia stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable except for the pain. Part of her had dreamed of this moment, making Kendrick face what he'd done and seeing his remorse. But another part of her just felt exhausted and overwhelmed having him here, dredging up feelings she'd carefully buried. She closed her eyes briefly to steady herself. "Do you have any idea," she said quietly, "how many nights I wished you would show up out of the blue? How many times I imagined you knocking on my door, saying you realized you made a mistake? For years, I clung to the hope that you might come back. But you never did." Her voice broke softly. "I had to let that hope die so I could move on and be the mother they needed. I got used to you being gone." Kendrick's face was ashen, tears freely falling now. "I have no excuse. Every day I stayed away, it got harder to confront what I'd done. I was a coward through and through." He took a shaky breath. "But seeing you up there tonight, seeing them, it's a wake-up call I deserved long ago. I know I can't undo anything, but please, tell me what I can do now. I'll do anything to support you and the kids. Financially, emotionally, whatever you allow." Talia looked away, out toward the lobby where Nova and the children had gone. A few people from the gala were milling about nearby, casting curious glances, but keeping respectful distance from the obviously intense private moment. She knew she had to collect herself. The last thing she wanted was to make a scene or upset the kids. She inhaled deeply, squaring her shoulders. "I don't know what the path forward is, Kendrick," she admitted, voice weary. "Tonight is not the time to figure it out. My priority is to keep those children happy and safe. I won't let you swoop in and out and confuse them. If you want to be in their life, it will be on their terms and on my terms. They come first." Kendrick nodded earnestly. "Of course. As they should. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll prove to you, to them, that I'm committed. Just, please give me a chance." Talia studied him, searching his face. For the first time, she saw not the confident CEO she once knew, but a man truly humbled, perhaps even broken, by remorse. It stirred conflicting feelings in her. This was the Kendrick she had wished to see years ago. But time had changed them both. She couldn't simply open the floodgates of trust because of a few apologies. "I need to think," she said at last, her tone softer but still guarded. "This is a lot. For me and for them. They don't even know who you are, Kendrick. I need to prepare them. I need to decide what's best for them." Kendrick opened his mouth to respond, but she held up a hand again. "I will contact you if I'm ready to talk about this more." She reached into her purse with trembling fingers, pulling out a business card for her non-profit. "My email and work number are on here. It's the only contact you'll have for me. Don't push me, and don't you dare show up unannounced in person. We will do this slowly and carefully. Am I clear?" Her eyes bore into him, establishing a firm boundary. He accepted the card with a shaking hand and nodded vigorously. "Clear, I understand, and thank you. Thank you for even considering it," he said quietly. Talia felt utterly drained. She glanced toward the exit. She could see Nova standing just outside the door with the children, likely wondering if she was okay. "I have to go," she murmured. "My kids need me." As she moved to walk past him, Kendrick spoke in a strained whisper. "Talia, just one more thing." She paused, waiting, holding herself tightly. Kendrick's voice quivered. "Tonight, hearing you speak, seeing how amazing you are with them, I just want you to know I'm in awe of you and deeply ashamed of myself." Talia shut her eyes, another tear slipping down. She couldn't reply to that. Her emotions were too raw. Instead, she simply gave a faint nod and then continued on, leaving Kendrick standing there with the card clenched in his hand. When Talia stepped out into the lobby, her children ran to her at once. "Mama," little Zuri cried, noticing her tears, and wrapped her arms around Talia's legs. "Why are you sad?" Omari asked, his small face creased with concern. Talia knelt to gather all three into a tight hug. "Mama's okay, my loves," she whispered, kissing each of their heads. "I'm not sad, I promise. I'm just happy to be with you." Nova hovered nearby, worry in her eyes, but Talia gave her a slight nod indicating she would explain later. With that, Talia walked away, holding Omari, Jabari, and Zuri close, Nova by her side. Kendrick did not follow. He remained rooted in place as the automatic doors glided shut behind them. In that moment, he understood with crushing clarity he had been given a tentative opening, but earning a place in that little family's life would be the hardest task he had ever undertaken. And he vowed to himself then and there that he would do it. Whatever it took, he would prove himself worthy of being those children's father and of any respect from the woman he had so gravely wronged. In the days following the gala, Talia grappled with her decision. True to her word, she did not rush. She consulted with Nova and her mother, weighed the potential benefits and risks for the children, and prayed on it. As much as she wanted to guard her heart and protect her kids from possible disappointment, she also saw the longing in Kendrick's eyes. Omari, Jabari, and Zuri were starting to ask questions too. That night after the event, Talia had explained in the simplest terms that the man they met was someone important from before they were born, planting the seed that he might visit them one day. The triplets had been full of innocent curiosity, a curiosity she knew would only grow. After a week of reflection, Talia reached out via email to Kendrick as promised. Her message was cautious but clear. If he wished to meet the children in a controlled, safe manner, she would allow a short visit at a public park the following Saturday. She laid out rules. Nova and she would be present the entire time, and he was not to overwhelm the kids with heavy conversations. It would be an introductory playdate, nothing more. Kendrick's reply came almost immediately, expressing gratitude and agreeing to every stipulation without hesitation. Reading his response, Talia felt a mix of relief and anxiety. This was really happening. That Saturday, the kids buzzed with excitement as they arrived at a quiet neighborhood park. Talia had told them that a special friend named Kendrick was coming to play. She didn't use the word daddy yet. She wanted to see how the first meeting went. Nova came along for moral support and an extra set of eyes. Talia's heart pounded when she saw Kendrick already there, sitting nervously on a bench by the playground with a kite and a brightly wrapped gift box by his side. When the triplets spotted him, they hesitated, clustering around their mother. Kendrick stood, managing a gentle smile. He looked different to Talia, dressed more casually in jeans and a polo, he seemed, almost boyish, and the usual confident veneer was replaced by palpable nervousness. "Hi, Omari, Jabari, Zuri," he said softly, crouching down to their level. "It's nice to see you again." The children peered at him with open curiosity. Zuri partially hid behind Talia's leg, while Jabari clutched a toy car to his chest. It was Omari who took a step forward first. "You remembered our names," he said, sounding pleased and a little proud. Kendrick's throat tightened. "Of course I did," he replied. "I've been thinking about you three a lot." Talia watched closely as the introduction unfolded. Kendrick was careful not to approach too quickly or force physical contact. Instead, he pointed to the colorful kite on the bench. "I brought something fun. Have you ever flown a kite?" Kendrick brought a colorful kite, which quickly helped the children overcome their shyness. Before long, delighted giggles filled the air as the kite soared high and the kids ran alongside Kendrick in awe. Talia and Nova watched from a short distance, surprised at how naturally he engaged with the little ones. After the kite-flying fun, they settled on a picnic blanket for snacks that Kendrick had thoughtfully prepared. The triplets peppered him with questions about his favorite color, pets, and more, and he answered each with gentle humor that made them laugh. At one point, perceptive Zuri asked why he had been sad at the gala. Kendrick admitted softly that it was because he missed them all very much, a response that seemed to satisfy her. By the end of the afternoon, all three children were clambering for his attention, completely at ease in his presence. As the sun dipped lower, their first meeting came to an end. By then, the kids were comfortable enough that they were reluctant to say goodbye. "Will you come play again?" Jabari asked bluntly, hanging onto Kendrick's arm. Kendrick glanced at Talia, not wanting to overstep. She gave a small nod. "I hope so," he answered. "If it's okay with your mom, I'd love to see you again soon." In the parking lot, as Nova buckled the children into car seats, Talia and Kendrick stood a few paces apart. "Thank you," he said softly to her, sincerity in every syllable. "For giving me this chance." Talia's face was unreadable, but her voice was not unkind. "They enjoyed today. I think it was good for them." She hesitated, then added, "You did well." It was the closest thing to praise she had given him in a long time. Kendrick exhaled, relief and gratitude evident. "I'll follow your lead with everything," he promised. "Whatever pace you decide, I'll be there." Over the next few months, Kendrick remained true to his word. He arranged his busy schedule to make time for regular visits, trips to the zoo Sunday, afternoon picnics, picking the kids up from preschool with Talia's permission. Each encounter built trust. He never arrived empty-handed, whether it was Jabari's favorite dinosaur book, a new puzzle for Omari's curious mind, or a handmade bead bracelet for Zuri. He paid attention to their interests. More importantly, he showed up consistently, with patience and warmth. Slowly, Talia began to relax some of her guard. She found herself chatting more naturally with Kendrick during these outings, mostly about the children, but sometimes even about work or memories of Atlanta. To her surprise, she enjoyed some of these conversations. It reminded her of the man she fell in love with, before ambition and fear took him away. For the children's sake, Talia eventually explained to them that Kendrick was actually their father. The triplets were surprised and excited. By the next visit, they were rushing into his arms, calling him Daddy, a moment that moved Kendrick to joyful tears. Despite this progress, Talia maintained healthy boundaries. She was polite and cooperative, but still guarded. Over time, however, she could see that Kendrick remained consistently devoted to the children and respectful of her rules, slowly rebuilding trust. Kendrick attended a parent-teacher meeting with Talia when one of the boys had trouble, sitting still in class, surprising the teacher, who assumed he was out of the picture. He deferred to Talia's rules and routines, for instance, keeping the kids' bedtime and not spoiling them with too many sweets, though he did sneak in extra cookies occasionally, earning a playful scolding from her. There were moments of awkwardness and emotional complexity too, like the first time the kids made a Father's Day card at preschool. They presented it to Kendrick with pride, while Talia looked on with a complicated smile, her feelings a mix of satisfaction that her children finally had a father figure to celebrate, and lingering hurt that it hadn't always been so. Through it all, Talia observed the man Kendrick was becoming around their children. He was softer, more selfless and attentive. It was as if being a father was unlocking parts of him that had long been dormant. The children adored him, that much was clear, and Talia could see the positive impact it was having on them. Omari's little face would light up when showing his dad a new drawing. Jabari started imitating Kendrick's mannerisms in cute ways, and Zuri would save up her silliest jokes just to make her daddy laugh. One evening, after Kendrick read the trio a bedtime story and tucked them in, an activity that had become a cherished routine on nights he visited, he and Talia stood by the door peeking at the sleeping kids. Zuri clutched a teddy bear Kendrick had given her, and the boys were bundled under a superhero blanket he'd brought. It was a peaceful domestic tableau neither parent took for granted. "They sleep so soundly, knowing you're here," Talia whispered. "They feel safe, Kendrick looked at Talia in the dim light of the hallway. I have you to thank for that. You made them feel safe and loved all these years. He hesitated, then added with emotion, I hope one day you'll feel safe with me too. I know I can't erase what I did, but I want you to know I'm all in for them and for whatever you might need. Talia felt a familiar warmth and ache in her chest at his words. She gave a small nod. I appreciate that, she replied quietly. I have noticed how much you've changed. The kids aren't the only ones who feel it. It was as close as she'd come to acknowledging his personal growth. Kendrick's eyes glistened. That means the world to me, Talia. I'll keep trying, every day, to be better for them, and for you. In that gentle moment, Talia allowed herself to softly squeeze his hand in acknowledgement before pulling away. There was still distance to maintain, wounds not fully healed, but progress had been made. For the first time in many years, a tentative friendship was forming between them amidst the CO parenting, built on mutual respect and the shared love for their children. Kendrick learned that redemption was not a destination, but a continuous journey, one he was determined to walk, slowly and humbly, as long as it took. A year later, a new sense of normalcy settled in. Talia and Kendrick established a respectful co-parenting rhythm. Kendrick, having learned to prioritize family, adjusted his work-life balance significantly. He even took a step back from day-to-day operations at Sky Tech, appointing a manager so he could spend more time with his children. On weekends, the five of them could often be found together, sometimes at Talia's house for a homemade pancake breakfast, other times at Kendrick's home. Talia had finally agreed to visit for the kids' sake and was relieved to see it was now filled with toys and child-proofed corners rather than the sterile bachelor pad it once was. Talia continued to flourish in her own right. The Phoenix Initiative grew, aided in part by a generous anonymous donation that she later discovered came from Kendrick. When she confronted him about it, saying he didn't owe her charity, he explained that it wasn't charity at all. Consider it an investment in something that truly matters, he said. I can't change the past, but I can support the good you're doing now. After initial reluctance, Talia accepted the gesture, recognizing that it was his way of contributing meaningfully. In late summer, the triplets graduated from preschool. At the small ceremony, both Mom and Dad were in the audience, cheering the loudest of all the families. When little Zuri walked across the stage to get her certificate, she glanced over to see Kendrick and Talia sitting side by side, both beaming with pride. That's my girl, Kendrick whispered to Talia, unable to contain his enthusiasm. Talia laughed softly, and in that moment her eyes met Kendrick's with a genuine warmth. There was a shared understanding of how far they all had come. After the ceremony, the family strolled through the park, the kids skipping ahead, holding hands. Kendrick hung back a step and gently said, "Thank you, Talia." She raised an eyebrow playfully. "For what this time?" He gestured toward the children, now playfully chasing a butterfly. "For them, for everything, raising them so well, allowing me back in, teaching me what truly matters." Talia's heart felt light as she replied, "We did okay, didn't we?" It wasn't a grand reconciliation of their past, but it was acknowledgement that something positive and strong had emerged from the pain. Talia had not forgotten what Kendrick did, but she had released the bitterness. Forgiveness was more for her own peace than for him, a truth she had come to learn over time. In letting go of the past, she found herself able to look forward. She still maintained her boundaries. Trust, she reminded him once, is rebuilt brick by brick. But she also embraced the cooperative partnership they were forming as parents. Perhaps in time, they could even be close friends. The embers of affection between them were faint, but not entirely gone. Regardless of what the future held for their relationship, one thing was clear: they had both grown immensely. As the sun set on the day of the preschool graduation, Talia and Kendrick joined their children on the grass. Omari climbed into his father's lap to proudly show him a leaf he'd found. Jabari tugged Talia's arm, asking if they could all get ice cream to celebrate, and Zuri declared she wanted the whole family to race to the big oak tree. The five of them took off in a joyful dash, laughter echoing through the golden light. In that scene of simple happiness, the long journey from heartbreak to healing reached a peaceful plateau. They had rewritten their story. Talia's resilience and love had built a beautiful life despite betrayal, and Kendrick's hard-earned humility had given him a second chance to be the man and father he was meant to be. While the future was unwritten, this much was certain: the lessons of the past had shaped a better present, one filled with hope, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bonds of family. She raised her babies with grace, and when the man who abandoned her came back, she taught him that forgiveness doesn't mean weakness, it means peace. If this story touched your heart, show some love, hit like, share this video, and subscribe for more stories that remind you strength is born from struggle. And tell me in the comments, do you believe people like Kendrick deserve a second chance?